Okay, Excellencies, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for joining this meeting on the challenges and opportunities of forest mining in the ASM sector. I'm Idriss Defry, environmental specialist at the World Bank, and I'm not a mining expert, but I had the opportunity along my professional experience to work on the relationship between ASM communities and forested protected areas. So we were mainly trying to find ways on building synergies between conservation and economical activities, including in French Guiana and Gabon's national park networks, where ASM is a really important activity. So at the time, we were working a lot on sustainable standards for logging and agriculture, for integrated forested landscape management, as FSC standard, RSPO. So the idea of using a similar approach with specific guidance on ASM and forest looked really promising. However, a few studies on the impact of ASM on forested areas had been developed. So that's why in 2019, we published with Pro4 support a set of reports on forest mining, including ASM. And one of the main findings was the lack of comprehensive guidance in that field. So that's why I'm really excited to be here today to show the progress we've made and to discuss the topic with a high-level panel. I'm taking this opportunity to thank the Forest Carbon Partnership Facility for the support provided in this initiative and the Planet Gold program for hosting this event during the Global Forum. I would like also to point out that we welcome participation in the chat and please include your email contact. So if you have any specific questions, we can follow up after the event. So I'm now pleased to introduce John Drexage, a climate change and mining expert working with us on the World Bank Climate Smart Mining Initiative. John, the floor is yours for a quick introduction of CSM.
Thank you very much, Idriss. And as Idriss mentioned, Forest Smart Mining is a part of the World Bank's broader Climate Smart Mining Initiative. World Bank envisions a low-carbon world where mining is climate smart and clean energy technologies value chains are sustainable and green. We want developing countries to play a leading role in the energy transition, developing minerals that are crucial to build clean energy technologies in a low-carbon and sustainable way. Launched in 2019, the Climate Smart Mining Initiative is the first ever dedicated initiative that brings together governments, industry, financial institutions, and private investors to support climate smart mining. It is a World Bank program helping resource-rich developing countries benefit from the increasing demand for minerals and metals that are critical to the low-carbon transition, while helping to minimize its environmental and climate footprint. Our support includes technical and policy advice, direct investment financing, leveraging private sector financing, providing risk mitigation and instruments, and helping countries meet their nationally determined contributions as part of the Paris Agreement. The initiative is both handled by the World Bank on the public side, as well as the International Finance Corporation, the private arm. Without climate smart mining practices, the negative impacts from mining activities on water, forest, and land will increase, while affecting vulnerable communities and environments. In that regard, we support a number of initiatives looking to minimize the climate and environmental impacts while enhancing their overall competitiveness. Some examples of that would include supporting the integration of renewable energy into mining operations. Given that the mining sector accounts for up to 11% of global energy use, and that mining operations are often located in remote areas that usually rely on diesel generators, ramping up the integration of renewables becomes a very critical and important task. We also support the strategic use of geological data for a better understanding of strategic mineral endowments. So that means for developing countries understanding exactly what are the deposits and reserves that developing countries have with these climate action minerals, and importantly from the perspective of forest smart mining, where those minerals are located in their different topographies. Oftentimes, many of these climate action minerals are found in forested areas, particularly in tropical forests, and these have huge impacts on the overall rate of deforestation, which, as we know, is very serious and will be addressed more explicitly throughout this presentation. Recycling of minerals and supporting developing countries in adopting a circular economy approach to reuse minerals is a way that not only respects the environment, but will also help to tamp down the very strong increase in demand that we expect from the transition to a net zero energy future. If the mining is not managed sustainably, then negative impacts could include not only increased greenhouse gas emissions, but also many other negative impacts to the local environment and to local communities. So when we speak of climate smart mining, it's not only about addressing the climate impacts or the greenhouse gas emissions, it's also about making sure that this is done and extracted in a way that is environmentally sustainable, economically equitable, and from a community's perspective, participatory and transparent, with full recognition of Indigenous rights and other issues along those lines. I believe my colleague Catalina has already in the post provided some information on where further information could be had. As Idris mentioned, if you have any further questions, we'll be glad to entertain those after this session, and we'll reach out to you separately if on any further questions. The CSM, in closing, is really a very exciting initiative. It's been going on for a few years now, and this forest smart mining component is a very important part that looks to address mitigation, climate resilience, and market mechanisms. So in that respect, I think is a very interesting cross-cutting element within the climate smart mining overall. I'll leave it at that, Idris, and bring it back to you. And looking forward to this very exciting panel going forward.
Many thanks, John, for this introduction on climate smart mining initiative and the explanation of the place of the forest smart mining in it. I would like now to introduce our two close partners representatives, Estelle Levin-Nally, founder and CEO of Levin Sources, and Felix Wushka from the Alliance for Responsible Mining. They will present an overview of the development process of the forest smart mining ASM bolt-on standard. Welcome, Estelle and Felix.
Well, thank you very much, Idris. Our consortium, that is Levin Sources, ARM, and FFI, was tasked by the World Bank to develop a forest smart mining standard for ASM. Now, Estelle and I would like to tell you how this standard was developed, what it contains, and what the next steps could be to convert this piece of paper into a tangible opportunity for the environment, the artisanal and small-scale miners, and our world's climate. Next slide, please. Thank you. As already mentioned in the introduction by John, deforestation and forest degradation contribute significantly to climate change. Mining in general is a major driver of deforestation, and in this, the ASM sector plays a minor but still a significant role. Therefore, the World Bank commissioned our work with three objectives. First, to develop principles, criteria, and indicators, PCIs, and guidelines for forest smart artisanal small-scale mining. This means a forest smart ASM standard as a single topic standard focusing on ASM in forest landscape. Secondly, to design processes to include this standard into already existing ASM standards, policies, and legislation. In other words, to avoid duplication of existing standards, but design what we call a bolt-on standard with the potential to enhance existing frameworks. And thirdly, to assess the feasibility of pilot implementation in ASM sites of 4 countries. There, Peru, Colombia, Ghana, and Liberia were chosen for piloting. The three objectives translated into three closely interlinked work streams. As it was not possible to engage in an extensive ICL-type standard setting process with various rounds of public consultation, all three work streams relied strongly on intensive, targeted consultations. Standard drafting was supported by a global advisory panel. The country feasibility studies involved local stakeholder consultations, and the strategies for standard uptake were developed in close consultation with ASM initiatives. Next slide, please. Now, let me summarize the key features of the standard, please. It is structured into three sections. The introduction, section A, defines the scope and the overarching principles. The standard has a global scope applicable in all landscapes. But important, to avoid any misunderstanding, it is not endorsing and even less encouraging ASM in protected areas, in key biodiversity areas, or in high conservation value areas. It is not promoting ASM in forested areas at all. It is based on three principles for existing ASM in such areas that are forest ecosystem resilience, related to biodiversity, carbon and ecosystem services, human rights approaches, safeguarding communities and livelihoods, both locally and globally, and as the third principle, commitment to the mitigation hierarchy, proposing practical approaches for forest impact avoidance, impact minimization, and impact rehabilitation. Section B contains the main body of the standard, to say the PCIs. Designed as a bolt-on standard, the PCIs only cover directly forest-related topics. And to be appropriate and feasible for ASM, a progressive implementation of the proven frugal rehabilitation methodology is required. Section B contains 5 requirements on situation assessment and planning of ASM operations, 37 addressing direct impacts from mining, 6 on non-mining and indirect impacts, and 16 optional requirements related to carbon finance. Section C contains the guidelines for the involvement of stakeholders. There we need to be realistic. Experience has shown that poverty-related ASM cannot be reasonably expected to meet standards without external help. But experience has also shown that ASM miners have a huge potential and an appetite for improvement. So, similar to the objectives of the Planet Gold, this forum, which require support to the ASM sector, ASM miners will also need stakeholder support to become forest smart. And there is a huge role to play for governments, civil society, the private sector and development organizations to cooperate in the establishment of an enabling context for forest smart ASM. My colleague Estelle will now go deeper into what would need to be done. I hand over to you, Estelle.
Felix, thank you so much. So I'm going to speak a little bit away from the slide, and I hope you can stay with me. But what I'm saying is on the slide. There are 4 major arenas in which we want to support the adoption of this standard in order to bring about forest smart, artisanal and small-scale mining. A first priority one that was identified as part of our objectives was to work with standard setters so that they can adopt this standard into their own. This is why we called it a bolt-on standard, because we recognize that it can't really have a life on its own, because any standard needs an owner to manage it and improve it over time. But it can act as a template and something that can be adapted and flexed into the structures and processes and requirements of existing standards. And that way it can be mainstreamed. The second arena in which it can be adopted is through governments, and this is hugely important because there are over 80 countries in which artisanal and small-scale mining happens, and we all know that it is through setting good governance and effective regulations and enforcing those that we can really incentivize improvements and help artisanal and small-scale miners introduce cleaner production methods. So the standard itself actually could be taken as inspiration by governments for regulations, for extension services to provide to artisanal and small-scale miners. And indeed, several of the suggestions in the guidelines part of the standard are oriented at governments. The third arena is through emissions reduction programs. And I think we found this one of the most exciting opportunities because carbon finance is not a traditional source of finance for driving change in artisanal and small-scale mining towards sustainable production systems. But perhaps with this standard, and it's intended to do so, we can unlock access to carbon finance for artisanal miners and have artisanal mining meaningfully involved in voluntary carbon schemes or REDD+ programs. And the fourth arena is through responsible sourcing programs, where downstream actors who are linked to artisanal and small-scale mining in forest landscapes may choose to work with local NGOs, local ASM communities, and support them to introduce part or all of the Forest Smart Mining Standard. So hoping you're seeing some relevance for your organizations. Now, the mechanisms for achieving these changes starts with raising awareness. We are at the beginning of the journey now, although we've been in a 2-year process to draft this. And this event today is our first real effort to raise awareness, except for the social media campaigns that the World Bank has kindly launched in the last couple of days. So we're actually wanting to build appetite and interest amongst all of our stakeholders in the Planet Gold community and beyond to let people know about this, to repost it through social media, to print it and share it with people who might have an interest, and of course on recycled paper and double-sided, talking of Forest Smart. The other thing is to start by building people's capacity to use it, and that's building capacity for adoption. It would be very efficient to have a set of concrete template guidances, training programs that make this more real and more inspirational. We say what is expected. There's not a lot on how to do it. And we all know in our experience of standard setting that the how-to can be extraordinarily useful in making it more realistic and feasible for standards to be brought to life. So there are some efforts there, and I would encourage any standard setter, for example, that does take it and develop it for itself to work with other standard setters to do that jointly and save resources and promote it and publish those tools. We also need to make the business case and the development case for this really clear to the people that we want to be using this. And this will help the standard setters too, if there was funding to develop some kind of market or benefit studies for the different stakeholders who will be necessary to be part of the support to the miners and the miners themselves, then that could really help push things forward faster and build momentum. Very excitingly, there are a set of 5 pilots sitting and ready for action. Part of our scope was to design work plans, roadmaps, and budgets for Burkina Faso, Peru, Colombia, Ghana, and Liberia. And we're aware of other countries where there is interest and programs that could begin this process in Congo and Sierra Leone, for example, and have appetite to do so. We really want to make sure those pilots get funded. So if you're a funder out there and you're looking for a concrete opportunity to make Forest Smart Mining happen, those local partners, Solidaridad, ARM, Diamonds for Peace, are ready and poised for action. I think the final thing to say is there's several ways we could go about taking Forest Smart Mining forward. It could just be put out there into the community, published, promoted, and left to bring a life of its own to the efforts of individual organizations working unilaterally and to a certain extent in their own tracks. Really, the big opportunity is to bring some kind of coordination into this, building a coalition of those implementing, adopting, using it, to learn from each other, to fill the gaps that are necessary to make adoption more likely and more affordable. And so really working together in line with SDG 17. So it's really a call for leadership and for organizations that can see themselves doing that convening to step forward and support that. And then the last call to action is all of the partners who have been involved in this, the World Bank, 11 Sources, FFI and ARM. We really want to see this happen. We're really committed to supporting others who decide they want to go on this journey and to learning from you. So do let us know if and when you use this. Give us feedback, ask us for our thoughts. We're happy to be informal advisors and support you. And yes, let's be in touch, let's communicate. Thank you. So if you're interested in having a look, and the next two slides show you a lovely QR code that you can use, and I encourage you to take a screenshot immediately before you move to the next slide. So to be clear, this document is our project report. This explains what we did, how we did it, why we did it, and what the next steps likely to be. This is a strategic report that would be of interest to any organisation that could see itself funding this or having a role in really bringing it to life. And then here's the standard itself for people that actually want to do it, use it with ASM communities, and think through how they can adapt and adopt it. So please take a picture of this too. And then on the last slide are our contact details so that you can get in touch. Thank you so much. And thank you to John and Idris for the opportunity to do this, and to Catalina for her support in promoting this.
Many thanks, Estelle and Felix, for the thorough overview of the process and the standard opportunities and potential next steps. So to go further, as Estelle just said, we really encourage you to consult the report we have just published for more information. I now hand over to my dear colleague, Rémi Pelon, Senior Mining Specialist at the World Bank, to introduce and moderate our high-level panel on ASM and forest moat mining. Rémi, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Idris, and welcome everyone. It's a pleasure to be moderating this great panel that we have to discuss a little bit the issue, the interaction between artisanal mining, ASM as we call them, and forest. So let me briefly introduce our four speakers for this panel. We are very honored to have Madame Luopu Lama, Minister of Environmental and Sustainable Development in Guinea. Welcome, Madam Minister. I hope you're here. I cannot see you yet, but let's see. Let me introduce the rest of the panel in the meantime. We are very also honored to have Mr. David Abdiamufo, Minister of Natural Resources from Suriname. Welcome, Mr. Minister.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to participate in this forum today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We also have Ruby Weinberg, Program Manager at GEMFAIR. Welcome, Ruby.
Thanks. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. And then Mr. Gustavo Fonseca, Director of Programs at the Global Environmental Fund. Welcome, Gustavo. Hey. So thank you so much. So I am not entirely sure whether Madam Minister is online. If you can hear us, please let us know. Otherwise, let me maybe start with a question to you, Mr. Minister from Suriname, just in the meantime. It's a pleasure to have you. I happen to have worked a little bit on Suriname a few years ago, so it's a great way to reconnect with that reality. So I just wanted to kick off with a quite general question. Could you please share your experience on the impact of artisanal mining on the environment and the local communities in Suriname?
Thank you. Thank you for the question. I must say the pleasure is all mine. I hope to welcome you very soon in Suriname again. But please allow me to first of all express my sincere gratitude to the World Bank for the efforts and for engaging with us in this trajectory of climate smart mining. So thank you for that. So, as we know, in most cases, artisanal and small-scale gold mining is a practice carried out by individual miners or small businesses with limited capital investment. Uh, Lots of families, especially in the local communities, are financially dependent on this sector. And in the case of Suriname, it has a significance in our national economy. We also know that it has a huge impact on the environment in air, water, land. I can mention land degradation, deforestation, soil erosion, contamination of water systems, increased turbidity of Suriname's inland waterways. This has a adverse impact on drinking water quality for downstream communities, but also for fish populations, and furthermore, biodiversity loss, CO2 emissions, important not only in the interior, but also in the city in Paramaribo due to gold transactions and processing of gold. Most of the production in ASGM still relies on the use of mercury, and you all know that leads to severe contamination and health-related risks for the miners, but also the neighboring and downstream communities through the contaminated river systems. But with the case of Suriname, with more than 14.8 million hectares of forest coverage, that's approximately 93% of the total area. Suriname is one of the most forested countries in the world. Historical annual rates of deforestation below 0.0% have allowed the country to be classified as a high forest, low deforestation HFLD country. But in addition, unregulated small-scale gold mining is a major threat to our forest conservation. So gold mining is contributing significantly to deforestation in Suriname. The impact on the local communities is mainly triggered by insufficient recognition of the rights of the local, of the tribal communities, and the lack of national legislation to tackle this issue. And that creates a lot of tensions between the local communities and owners of mining rights. But now, with this new administration, um, based on the policy note of my ministry, um, we have mentioned the FPIC procedure that it should entail the freely established prior and deliberate consent of the concerned local communities. So that's the way forward for us. And by implementing this new policy, we we have figured out that that's one possible way to make sure that we prevent the tensions, the conflicts to be occurring in the future. So that's my answer to this question, and I hope that this can contribute to the further discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Minister. It's very important for us to hear from one of the most forested country in the world, as you mentioned, and we can only imagine what a challenge it is to manage to balance the need for livelihoods in these regions and the impact on the forest. Thank you again, Mr. Minister. I think we have Madame Luopu online. Est-ce que vous pouvez nous entendre, Madame?
Yes, hello. I can hear you. Hello, everyone.
And let me reintroduce you, since I don't think you were on the screen when I did. So you are the Minister of Environment and Sustainable Development in Guinea, and we're very honored to have you here. So we were just hearing from Suriname, and I will, if you don't mind, ask you the same question. Can you please share with us your experience on the impact of artisanal mining on the environment and the local communities? Over to you, Madam Minister.
Merci beaucoup.
So thank you very much. So the conditions in Guinea are really, really difficult, which causes a lot of exploitation in the ASM. So in addition to that, we have a lot of environmental and social impacts. We have deforestation, we have soil degradation. In addition to that, we have the pollution of water, especially we have mercury, we have cyanide that is polluting all of these components. In addition to that, this endangers not only the environment and the zones, but as well endangers people. However, continuing to protect the environment thanks to the environmental activities and thanks to the objective that we have put together, which is an integrated approach that is going not only to help miners, but only is going to be beneficial for sustainable development and is going to preserve biodiversity. So if you're asking me about the exportation of these products in Guinea, this is what I had to say, and thank you very much.
Merci à vous, Madame la Ministre. Thank you so much. So I hope other people got to hear the translation, and but I'm lucky I could understand. So I suppose we hope that the standard that was developed through this report can be of use in the context of Guinea, where I fully understand you're looking for developing this integrated approach and again balancing the local community needs and the interest of the forest. Maybe let us turn to Ruby and hear from you if you can share as well the importance of your initiative Gem Fair and set the scene in terms of how can you protect better the environment through this initiative.
Absolutely. Thanks, Remy. So GemFair is working with artisanal diamond miners in Sierra Leone in the Kono district. We are purchasing diamonds from artisanal miners using a traceability app that we developed. And all the miners that join our program need to meet a set of minimum standards that are aligned with the OECD's due diligence requirements. But then after they join our program, we work with them over the longer term to meet other standards around fair labor practices, wages, health and safety, and environment, of course. So I would say that for the first 2 years, we focused quite a lot on making sure that labor and safety standards were really well in place at the sites that we were sourcing diamonds from. And it's been since late 2020 that we've been really delving more deeply into an extended suite of environmental standards. And this was brought about by our observation at the 100 or so sites that we were working with at the time around their practices, most notably around closure or lack thereof. And also just understanding from community stakeholders in Kono that unreclaimed mine sites, which you can really quite obviously see all over Kono district, are a safety hazard. They leave stagnant pits, which can cause waterborne diseases, but also, and really importantly, they're a waste of what could be productive land. So what we wanted to understand a little bit better was, what does it take to reclaim a mined out area? What are the costs, the cost implications? How long does it take? What are the labor inputs required? And then also really understand from stakeholders, both in the mining sector, but also in the wider community, what do they want to do with that land? What could it be used for? And overwhelmingly, that land is what people do want that land to be used for is for agriculture. So we've been working with stakeholders at the 4 or so sites that we've reclaimed to cultivate that land. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ruby. Yeah, I suppose many challenges in the diamond sectors are similar to the gold ones, right? I mean, especially when it comes to rehabilitating or reclaiming the mine sites. And yeah, I think the standard includes quite a few recommendations in these areas. So thanks for sharing this initiative. I hope that develops and also expands to gold at some point. I know there are actually some initiatives on gold, of course. Maybe let us turn to Gustavo at this juncture. Gustavo, do you think there is an opportunity for Jeff investment in forest smart mining for ASM within or beyond the Planet Gold program?
Well, thanks, Remy. And first, let me congratulate the World Bank for launching this very useful report and for inviting us from the Jeff to participate in the discussion today. Forest smart mining is a really important topic for us, and it's great to be here today with Minister Lulupo Lama from Guinea and Mr. David Abdiamufo from Suriname, along with Ruby, who represents an important industry leader for this discussion. For those of you who might not know the GEF, as we call it, the Global Environment Facility, well, we are a financial mechanism that supports the major international agreements on the environment, including the conventions on biodiversity, climate change, land degradation, and most importantly, in our case today, the chemicals and waste agenda. They're also served by 2 important conventions. We also have an active investment in an area that deals with transboundary freshwater resources and marine resources, but the freshwater aspect of this is very important because of the nature of the ASGM sector and the use of chemicals, in particular mercury. This means that the GEF is quite unique in that we address multiple environmental issues under one roof. And that means that we have always tried to look at synergies and always tried to address multiple environmental benefits in any project or program that we provide grant financing. The Planet Gold program was born out of the mandate that we have from the Minamata Convention on Mercury to reduce mercury pollution. The ASGM sector is the largest source of mercury globally, so it's very logical that we are addressing this sector as a priority. Well, we have to reduce mercury from ASGM as a primary goal of the GEF. Like all other initiatives that the GEF finances, we have to look at the issue from a more holistic perspective, and we aim, for example, to prevent deforestation, land degradation, biodiversity loss, and also deal with land-based sources of emissions from CO2. And in this vein, forest smart mining would be a very natural fit for the GEF initiatives that are aiming at supporting the sector. In fact, the GEF has supported ASGM initiatives implemented by the World Bank in Africa before, and it would be especially interesting if the World Bank can apply in further projects to this bolt-on approach to the existing initiatives. If you're not doing that already, I'd like to hear a bit about that. Finally, we have concluded a few days ago with our donor countries the negotiations for the next financial cycle of the JEF. We replenished our trust fund from July of 2022 to June of 2026 with a record-breaking replenishment of our trust fund in the amount of $5.3 billion over the next 4 years, which opens up tremendous opportunities for additional work in this sector. And I'm sure that the work that this report brings forward will be a very important contributor to good quality of investments going forward for this particular sector. Thank you very much, Remy. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Gustavo. And you're right. It's not only for Jeff to open a door. The World Bank and other institutions have to pick up the opportunity and apply, and indeed devote some time and resource to use that money according to the sustainability principles. Let us maybe. I know, Madame Ministre,
I don't know if you have been able to listen to the translation. No, I am so sorry. I think that we're going to link you right now, to send you a link in order for you to be able to do so. But while we wait, maybe I can give you the floor once again.
We wanted to ask you a second quite general question, but so crucial to hear, directly the demand from you. What kind of support would you need in Guinea to increase, the consideration of forest and the environment in artisanal mining practices? Est-ce que voulez-vous que je le traduise ou c'est bon?
Non, j'ai compris la deuxième question. Quel soutien nécessaire, quel type de soutien nécessaire?
C'est ça.
Alors,
Merci.
je sais.
Yes, I understood the question, no problem. Can you hear me? Yes. So I was saying that the potential impacts of the mining activities on forests can be direct, indirect, and can be cumulative as well. So none of these impacts can be ignored, and all of them have to be taken into account in order for us to preserve the ecosystems and the forests. So in order to promote and to reinforce the protection of the environment, it is required to better the regulation. We need to protect the environment via the support, the improving and the standardization of the tests. For example, we need to promote, we need to improve the laws. We need to improve the international national standards in order for them to comply with the international ones. However, also we need to control and we need to follow up with the environmental and social plans. In addition to that, we're going to improve the methods on using soil, on using and establishing infrastructure that is essential in that regard. In addition to that, we need to have mechanisms that would compensate the negative impacts that are related to ASM, and we need to help the countries so that they are able to respect and to have to respect these laws and to have the adequate governance in that regard. So here is what I wanted to say. So we need to take the forests into account in the mining exploitation, and I would like to thank you, and we need to as well to build capacities. So thank you very much, Your Excellency. I think that you have deployed a lot of efforts in that regard in the mining sector. I know that you have cooperated with the World Bank to do so, but I know that the obstacles are still very huge, and it's very important to define this context to reinforce the capacities, the observation, the follow-up capacities, etc. Yes, effectively. Of course, we are working with the World Bank in order to put together some plans to manage natural resources that are mined in the environment. And in addition to that, we have submitted about 30 documents to the bank in order to put it together, in order to implement, to launch this application tests and to take into account not only the environment but also the forests. In addition to that, the Guinean Agency of the Environment and the Guinean Office of the Reserves and the Environment and the Ministry of the Environment is working on that. So we really want to promote these activities, to advance these activities in order to be able to put together all of the guidelines that would be related not only to the sustainable development but to a rational exploitation of these resources. So thank you very much, Your Excellency. I'm going to give the floor right now to the colleagues, but I'm sure that everyone here is going to support you in these activities.
Maybe let me turn to you, Mr. Minister. I know you actually also have some collaboration, I think, with the World Bank, but I'm not sure if actually artisanal mining is part of it. But it'd be great to hear from you too, Mr. Minister. What kind of support would you need, or to increase the consideration of forest and environment more generally in the ASM subsector for Suriname? Can you hear us well? Yeah?
Okay,
Sure.
okay, I was on mute. Yes, to reduce the negative impact, access to data is very important for us. And that will be key to build capacity of miners, but also to promote resource-efficient mining practices across the mine life cycle. In Suriname, ASGM is a vital income source, but the sector is limited by lack of technical capacity. Technical capacity in ASGM areas is weak, and support is required to assist the sector to professionalize, to train on mercury-free and environmental safer techniques, and of course to build capacity. A review of the legislation on mining should take these aspects into account. We are in the process of developing a new mining legislation, and cohesive strategies are needed to reconcile land use conflicts, enhance financial access, and to promote transfer of technology. And in all this, engagement and leadership by all stakeholders are of urgent need. Cooperation is very important, and policy harmonization and coordination of ASGM between the different agencies, the different ministries, forestry, natural resources, agriculture, environment, other relevant agency. That's a must for us to be able to strengthen forest smart mining and regulate the ASGM sector in Suriname. And to conclude, you mentioned it earlier, we are currently in the process of, and again, this is with funding of the World Bank, we are in the process to put in place a mineral institute where existing capacity will be combined and of course also strengthened to be, among other goals, to be better equipped to restructure and to monitor the small scale gold mining sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. I'm happy to hear that the Minerals Institute will soon see the light of day. I remember this was an ambitious plan quite a long time ago. So it's great to see that it's probably going to contribute to monitoring artisanal mining indeed, and eventually protect also the rainforest. So thank you, Mr. Minister. Maybe let's turn to Ruby to hear a little bit more about the role of the private sector in this, and what positive contribution do you think it can make to the forest smart small scale mining?
Yeah, so I think I can probably only speak to what we're able to do in our very small upstream footprint in Sierra Leone. But I guess this also does speak to what folks who are sourcing materials and minerals from artisanal miners could think about doing. I think it's been raised already on this panel that artisanal miners really do lack funding to implement what's beyond the most basic of standards at their mining operations. And so I think one really important thing that we can be doing is supporting miners to meet the standards that we set, and making sure that the standards that we set are really practical and based on, the unique ASM sector that they're working in. So for us, we had the fortunate coincidence of being able to take part in the global advisory panel for the development of the Forest Smart Mining and ASM PCIs as we were launching this reclamation pilot in Sierra Leone. So we got to draw out some of those PCIs as they were being developed around selecting sites, planning for the reclamation project, how to protect topsoil, things along those lines. I think, though, where we diverge a little bit, at least in the programming that we're running, is the land, the post-mining use of the lands. My impression in the PCIs was we want to be looking to reforest or restore the mining land, the post-mining lands, and that may not always align with what local stakeholders want and need. And so getting the right incentives there for sustainable use of the lands is going to be really essential. What we found in our programming is we really wanted to defer to our local stakeholders. And for them, that was in the face of food insecurity, what they really needed was agriculture, subsistence agriculture. But how can we do that in a way that is has as little an impact on the forest as possible is what we're exploring now.
Thank you, Ruby. No, thanks. I mean, it's interesting, and I suppose when you define a standard, you really want to make sure that it's applicable to those different circumstances. And I understand that in your context, you have to accommodate the needs of the communities and the restoration of the mine sites into potentially other land uses, right? So Gustavo, maybe you have the last question of this round. I mean, we heard you express how Jeff could potentially continue to support this improving practices in the artisanal mining. So I don't know how much of a chance you had to go deep into the reading of the standard, but it'd be interesting to hear from you, how feasible as a pathway it looks for GF partners to really embrace this standard and mainstream it.
Yes, thanks, Remy. Well, the answer to that, yes, we can definitely stimulate the use of the tool. As some of you may know, or if you don't know, the JEF doesn't implement project itself. It provides the financing, but we are really dependent on the implementing agencies to really adopt these standards and to ensure that they are embedded into projects in the sector in the countries where they work. As I mentioned earlier, the World Bank is one of the JEF's implementing partners in the ASGM initiatives. It's already implementing projects with JEF grants in Africa and also in the Amazon, including in the Putumayo River Basin in the Amazon that spans 4 countries. So it seems like it might be a low-hanging fruit here for the World Bank and for other agencies that are active in this space to apply this bolt-on approach to the existing initiatives if they aren't already doing so. Additionally, some of the case studies that you have in this paper overlap with countries where the JEF is already active or is considering supporting ASGM, and this may be another opportunity for easy coordination. I must say, but that all JEF projects are of course country-driven, so we need to see, how the countries align with these tools, processes, and standards. And the priorities within JEF projects need to be priorities of the country. But it's clear from what we heard today from the ministers of Guinea and Suriname that forest smart mining is very much a country priority. So I see that using this tool might add to the arsenal of tools that we need to use to get good results in this sector. Finally, I just heard now that both ministers have highlighted the need for policy harmonization, or as we like to say in the JEF, policy coherence, which is a very prominent part of the next replenishment cycle of the JEF. Embedding policy harmonization and coherence is an objective when dealing with the forest mining sector. And through this, we can ensure that different sectors are not working across purposes, and we can find the necessary synergies that provide more systemic solutions to the existing problems, which in this case are clearly systemic in nature. So that recognition by 2 important ministers is very, very welcoming. So thank you, Remy.
Thank you, Gustavo. Thank you so much. And I think we're coming to the end of the time we have. Let me just thank everyone for attending, and thank you very much our great panelists. I think we have a tool with this report and with this research to try and find a new balance between protecting the forest and protecting the livelihoods of artisanal miners. I think everyone is conscious about the magnitude of the challenge, but there's also this new reality that coming from the demand side, right? That standards need to be improved if supply chains are to sort of be sustainable. So I do believe that that type of effort of standardization can contribute to improving practices. And with that, I will probably hand over to Idriss for some closing remarks. So thank you again, everyone.
Many thanks, Remy, and many thanks to our panelists for this really interesting discussion on forest mining challenges and opportunities. Dear speaker, audience, and Planet Gold organizer, thank you very much for joining our event and make it possible today. Talking about climate smart and forest smart mining practices is really critical to meet the Paris Agreement targets and sustainable development goals. Forest loss disrupts ecosystem services, depletes biodiversity, undermines the fulfillment of basic human rights, and the mining sector is a significant driver of deforestation and forest degradation. So today we have discussed how forest smart mining practices create diverse and alternative livelihoods, reduce poverty, sustain ecosystem services, and contribute to healthy local and global environment. We also hear about key experiences in Suriname and Guinea. We also talk about our newest forest smart mining report, where we find ways to introduce forest smart mining practices to ASM operations. And we are really pleased to hear the interest for forest smart mining ASM standard from the main stakeholders, including the countries today, Suriname and Guinea, the private sector, thank you, Ruby, and key partners as Jeff, including with the ASGM initiative and with the new replenishment record and all the related opportunities. So we look forward to discussing this again, especially on practical ways to move from the current pilot phase to practice. So do not hesitate to download our report. The link has been provided in the chat, and thank you again for your participation. Have a great end of day.